He disappeared on our wedding night. 3 days later, his sister sent me a photo that made my blood run cold. But when I walked into that courtroom 6 months later, it was her family begging me for mercy. Maya Chen stood barefoot on the balcony of their honeymoon suite in Maui, watching the Pacific Ocean turn gold under the setting sun. The salt-heavy breeze carried the scent of plumeria flowers, and somewhere below, a ukulele played softly in the resort's beachfront restaurant. She should have been happy. 24 hours ago, she'd married Daniel Hartwell in a ceremony that cost more than most people's homes. Surrounded by 300 guests in a historic vineyard overlooking Puget Sound. The photos had been perfect. The vows had been beautiful. Her dress had been everything she'd dreamed of since she was a little girl watching her parents' wedding video. But now, at 11 p.m. on her first night as Mrs. Hartwell, her husband was gone. No note, no text. Just his wedding ring sitting on the edge of the bathroom counter, catching the lamplight like an accusation. Maya had been married for exactly 19 hours when Daniel said he needed to run down to the resort lobby to check on something. Work-related. Couldn't wait. He'd kissed her forehead with the kind of distracted affection you'd give a distant relative, and walked out the door. That was 3 hours ago. She'd spent the evening trying to convince herself this was normal. That successful men like Daniel had responsibilities that didn't pause for honeymoons. She'd ordered room service she couldn't eat, the lobster growing cold on the plate. She'd refreshed her phone every 30 seconds, watching the minutes crawl by with agonizing slowness. She'd taken a bath, put on the expensive lingerie she'd bought specifically for tonight, and then changed back into a t-shirt and shorts when another hour passed with no word. The truth was, Daniel had been distant for weeks. Maybe months, his mind somewhere else even as he tasted wedding cakes and approved flower arrangements. Even as he said his vows looking into her eyes, his voice had carried a strange emptiness, like he was reading lines in a play he didn't fully believe in. Maya had told herself it was stress from the wedding, from merging their lives together, from the pressure of joining two families who came from such different worlds. Love makes you blind to red flags written in neon. Her phone finally buzzed at 11:47 p.m. Maya's heart leaped, then immediately sank when she saw it wasn't Daniel. It was his younger sister, Caroline. They'd never been close. Caroline had always looked at Maya with a mixture of pity and disdain, like she was watching someone walk confidently toward a cliff edge. The message had no words, just a photo attachment and a single line. "I'm sorry you had to find out this way." Maya's hands trembled as she opened the image. Daniel? In a restaurant booth at what looked like an upscale sushi place. His arm around a woman with glossy dark hair and a familiar laugh. Maya's college roommate, Jasmine Lee. The woman who'd helped Maya pick out her wedding dress. Crying in the bridal shop about how beautiful Maya looked. The woman who'd given a tearful speech about friendship and loyalty at the rehearsal dinner 2 nights ago. The woman Maya had trusted with every secret, every fear, every dream. The second photo came through before Maya could process the first. Daniel kissing Jasmine's forehead. His eyes closed like he was finally home after a long journey. His hand cupped her face with a tenderness Maya recognized, because it used to be meant for her. In the background, through the restaurant window, Maya could see the lights of downtown Seattle. They weren't even hiding. They were having dinner in the city where Maya and Daniel had built their life together. Maya's hands trembled so badly she almost dropped the phone. She sat down hard on the balcony floor, the rough volcanic stones scraping against her bare legs. 6 years together. 6 years of building a life, of planning a future, of believing in promises made in candlelight and whispered in the dark during thunderstorms. 6 years of introducing him to her family, learning his habits, memorizing the way he took his coffee and the way he laughed at his own jokes before the punchline. All of it, a carefully constructed lie. The phone rang, the sound cutting through the night like a scream. "Unknown number," Maya answered without thinking, her voice coming out as barely a whisper. "Hello? Well, I hope you're satisfied." The voice was cold, sharp as broken glass, unmistakably belonging to Helena Hartwell, Daniel's mother. "My son has been absolutely miserable for months because of your inadequacy. Now he's finally found happiness with someone appropriate. and you need to accept it gracefully. Maya felt her chest constrict. What are you talking about? Where is Daniel? With someone who actually understands him. Someone who doesn't suffocate him with middle-class expectations and desperate neediness. Helena's tone was almost gleeful, like she'd been waiting for this moment. You were always too ordinary for our family, Maya. Too simple. Too small-minded. We tried to make it work for Daniel's sake. Tried to polish you up and make you presentable. But some people just don't belong in certain circles. It's not your fault, dear. You just weren't raised for this kind of life. Maya's vision blurred with tears. But underneath the pain, something else was stirring. A cold clarity. I see. And you knew about this. About Jasmine. Of course I knew. I encouraged it. Daniel needs a partner who can navigate our world, who understands the demands of real wealth and real power. That Lee girl comes from the right background, the right connections. Her family owns half of the tech startups in the Pacific Northwest. You see, Maya, marriage isn't about love in families like ours. It's about building dynasties. And you, sweet girl, were never dynasty material. Thank you for clarifying things, Helena. Maya's voice came out steady, calm, almost detached, surprising even herself. This conversation will be very useful. She hung up before Helena could respond, cutting off whatever poisonous thing was about to spill from that woman's mouth next. For hours, Maya sat on that balcony, watching the stars multiply over the ocean like diamonds scattered across black velvet. She wasn't crying anymore. The tears had dried on her cheeks, leaving salt tracks in their wake. She was thinking, planning, remembering details she'd dismissed. Conversations she'd excused. Moments that suddenly made terrible. Perfect sense. The prenup Daniel insisted on signing 3 weeks before the wedding, drafted by Helena's personal attorney, full of language Maya's own lawyer had called unusually punitive. The way Jasmine had volunteered to help with every aspect of the wedding planning. Always around, always asking questions about timelines and finances and family matters. The business deal Daniel mentioned last month, the one requiring his mother's approval and significant capital, the life insurance policy Helena had suggested Maya sign, just to protect the family's interests, with Helena's company listed as the beneficiary. The way Daniel had started going to the gym at odd hours. The way he'd password-protected his phone for the first time in their entire relationship. The weekend trips he took with college buddies that Jasmine somehow also attended. The way Helena had smiled at the wedding. A smile that didn't reach her eyes. Like she knew a secret that would destroy everyone in the room. None of it was random. This wasn't a spontaneous affair born from passion or mistake. This was orchestration. This was strategy. This was a plan that had been in motion for months. Maybe longer, with Maya as the unwitting target. By dawn, watching the sky turn from black to purple to that particular shade of blue that means morning is inevitable. Maya had made 3 phone calls. The first to her old friend Marcus Rivera, a forensic accountant who'd gone to Stanford with her father and owed her family a favor from years back when they'd helped his sister through a legal nightmare. The second to a private investigator named Sarah Kim, recommended by Maya's divorce attorney cousin, known for being thorough, discreet, and absolutely merciless when tracking down the truth. The third to the attorney who'd handled her father's estate before he died. A woman named Patricia Okoye, who had a reputation for being brilliant, ruthless, and utterly uninterested in playing nice with wealthy families who thought they were above consequences. "Patricia, it's Maya Chen. I need to know everything," Maya said when the attorney picked up. Her voice rough from crying and salt air. Daniel Hartwell's finances, Helena Hartwell's business dealings, any connection between the Hartwell family and Jasmine Lee, any paper trail, any digital footprint, any whisper of impropriety. And I need to know it yesterday. "How deep do you want me to dig?" Patricia asked, and Maya could hear the sharpness in her voice. The sound of a warrior recognizing a call to battle. All the way to hell if that's where the truth is hiding. Maya flew back to Seattle alone the next morning, leaving the honeymoon suite exactly as it was. The uneaten room service, the expensive lingerie still folded in tissue paper, the champagne warming in its bucket. Let Daniel come back to an empty room. Let him wonder where she went, what she was thinking, what she knew. Let him underestimate her one last time. Marcus called 3 days later, just as Maya was sitting in her father's old study in the house she'd inherited, surrounded by his law books and the smell of cedar and old leather. She'd been sleeping there, unable to face the apartment she'd shared with Daniel, unable to look at their photos or smell his cologne on the pillows. "Maya, you need to sit down for this," Marcus said, his voice tight with something between anger and excitement. "I'm sitting." She was curled in her father's reading chair, wearing his old Stanford sweatshirt, holding a mug of tea that had gone cold hours ago. The Hartwell family construction company is bleeding money. They've been losing contracts steadily for 2 years, and Helena has been moving assets around like a shell game to hide it from investors. But here's where it gets interesting. 6 months ago, right around the time Daniel started acting strange, Jasmine Lee incorporated a new business, luxury property management and development consulting. Very upscale, very connected. And guess who's listed as the silent partner? Buried in the LLC paperwork? Daniel. Bingo. They've been planning this for at least half a year, maybe longer, setting up their exit strategy, their new life together. And Maya, there's more. That prenup you signed? It's not legally valid. Helena's attorney never properly notarized it. The witness signatures don't match any known individuals, and Daniel's signature was forged. I compared it to his tax documents. His business contracts, everything. It's not even a good forgery. Maya felt her pulse quicken, blood rushing in her ears. What does that mean? It means you're legally entitled to half of everything Daniel owns or acquired during your marriage, including his shares in the family business. The prenup is worthless. And if we can prove fraud, which we absolutely can, you might be entitled to punitive damages on top of the community property split. Maya, we're talking millions, not thousands. The Hartwells tried to cheat you, and they were sloppy about it. Sarah Kim's report arrived by courier that same evening. A thick manila envelope that landed on the doorstep like a bomb. Maya opened it with shaking hands, spreading the contents across her father's old desk. Photographs, bank statements, hotel receipts, credit card records, text message logs obtained through methods Sarah didn't elaborate on and Maya didn't ask about. Daniel and Jasmine had been seeing each other for 14 months. The affair started at Maya's 27th birthday party, in her apartment, while Maya was in the kitchen cutting cake, and Daniel was supposed to be helping Jasmine find the bathroom. There were photos from that night, timestamps showing them disappearing into Maya's bedroom for 20 minutes while the party continued without them. There were hotel receipts from the weekend Daniel said he was visiting his college roommate in Portland. Receipts from the conference in San Francisco where Daniel said he was meeting potential investors. Receipts from the supposed guy's fishing trip to British Columbia. Every lie, documented, every betrayal, timestamped and cross-referenced. But the photographs that mattered most were different. They showed Helena meeting with Jasmine at an exclusive private club in downtown Seattle. The kind of place where memberships cost 6 figures and discretion is the first rule. Helena handing over an envelope across a polished mahogany table. Both women smiling like they were sharing a delicious secret. Meeting again at the Hartwell family office. Jasmine sitting in on what appeared to be a board meeting. Meeting a third time at a notary public. Jasmine signing documents with Helena watching approvingly over her shoulder. Sarah had even gotten audio from a listening device planted in Helena's car during a repair appointment that Sarah had arranged through a contact in the automotive industry. Helena's voice came through crystal clear on the recording. Once she's out of the picture and Daniel is with you, we can access her trust fund through the marriage dissolution. My attorneys will structure it so she's the one who looks unstable, desperate. She's too naive to fight back. Too middle class to understand how these things really work. We'll take everything her father left her and fold it into our restructuring plan. The timing is perfect. Maya listened to the recording 3 times. Her face expressionless, her hands perfectly still on the desk. They hadn't just betrayed her. They'd hunted her. She was prey to them. A resource to be harvested. A problem to be solved. every kind word, every family dinner, every moment she'd tried to fit into their world had been a lie designed to keep her compliant until they could strike. Patricia Okoye came to the study in person the next day, her briefcase heavy with documents. Her expression serious. She was a tall woman in her 50s, with gray locks pulled back in an elegant twist and the kind of presence that made rooms go quiet when she entered. "Maya, I've never seen anything quite like this," Patricia admitted. Spreading documents across the coffee table, Helena Hartwell has been running a Ponzi scheme with the family business for years, moving debt around, creating false partnerships, inflating asset values for investors while hiding losses. If we expose this, we don't just win a divorce settlement. We can file for fraud, conspiracy, theft by deception, breach of fiduciary duty. The Hartwells will lose everything. Helena could face criminal charges. Daniel could face charges. Even Jasmine could be charged as an accessory if we can prove she knew about the financial fraud. "How long would it take?" Maya asked, her voice steady. 6 months, maybe less if we push hard. But Maya, I need you to understand something. This gets ugly. This becomes public. Your name, your story, Daniel's infidelity. Everything goes into the court record. Eventually it goes to the press. The Seattle Times will run it. Probably the national media too. Given the amounts involved and the criminal implications, your private pain becomes public spectacle. Are you prepared for that? Maya stood up and walked to her father's desk. In the drawer, she found his old fountain pen. The one he used to sign important documents? The one he'd used to write her birthday cards every year. He'd been a superior court judge before he died, known for his integrity and his refusal to give wealthy defendants special treatment. She wondered what he would think of what she was about to do. Then she realized she knew exactly what he'd think. He'd tell her to fight, to demand justice, to never let powerful people get away with crushing the vulnerable. "I don't care about ugly," Maya said quietly. Turning back to Patricia, "I care about truth. I care about making sure they can't do this to anyone else. This isn't just about personal revenge, Patricia. This is about accountability. File everything. Hit them with everything we have." Patricia smiled, a fierce expression that made her look like a warrior queen. "I was hoping you'd say that. I'll have the initial filings ready by tomorrow morning." The lawsuit hit the Hartwell family like a meteor strike. Patricia didn't just file for divorce and annulment. She filed criminal complaints with the King County Prosecutor's Office. She obtained emergency restraining orders preventing Helena and Daniel from liquidating any assets. She froze every bank account, every investment portfolio, every property title. She filed motions to depose every business partner, every family member, every person who'd ever done business with Hartwell Construction. She sent subpoenas to banks, hotels, credit card companies, phone carriers. She built a legal fortress around Maya, and then went on the attack with the precision of a surgeon and the fury of an avenging angel. Within 48 hours, the Seattle Times had the story on the front page. Prominent Seattle family faces fraud charges after honeymoon betrayal. Within 72, it was picked up by national outlets. CNN ran a segment. The New York Times wrote an analysis piece about wealth, privilege, and the casual cruelty of families who saw people as chess pieces. Social media exploded with support for Maya, with hashtags about justice and accountability, with hundreds of women sharing their own stories of betrayal by wealthy partners who thought they were too powerful to face consequences. The business community turned on the Hartwells instantly. Partners withdrew from deals, citing ethical concerns and reputational risk. Banks called in loans, suddenly worried about exposure. Contractors filed liens for unpaid work. Investors filed lawsuits. The carefully constructed facade of respectability crumbled, revealing the rot underneath. Helena's empire, built on leverage and intimidation and the assumption that wealthy people played by different rules, began to collapse, one domino at a time. Daniel tried to call Maya 16 times the first day after the lawsuit was filed. She didn't answer. She watched his name light up her phone screen over and over. Let it go to voicemail. then deleted the messages without listening. On the 17th call, she picked up. Maya, please. We need to talk about this. His voice was panicked, desperate. Completely different from the cold distance of their last weeks together. It's not what you think. I can explain everything. This has gotten out of control. Can you explain the forged prenup? Maya's voice was ice, sharp and unforgiving. Can you explain the shell companies? Can you explain planning to steal my inheritance? The money my father worked his entire life to build. Can you explain sleeping with my best friend for over a year while planning our wedding? Silence on the other end, then, weakly, Maya. My mother. She pushed me into this. She said we needed your money to save the company. She said you'd never find out. That we could make it work. So you were just following orders? Maya laughed. A bitter sound that surprised her. You're 34 years old, Daniel. You don't get to blame your mother for destroying someone who loved you. You made choices. You chose to lie. You chose to cheat. You chose to see me as a mark instead of a partner. Own it. I do love you. I did love you. I got confused. No, you got caught. There's a difference. And Daniel? My attorney will contact yours. Don't call this number again. Every communication from this point forward goes through legal channels. She hung up before he could respond. Blocked his number, and felt absolutely nothing. Jasmine tried a different approach. She showed up at Maya's apartment at midnight 2 days later, somehow getting past the building's security, pounding on the door and crying loudly enough that neighbors started opening their doors to look. Maya, wrapped in a blanket on the couch, considered not answering. But she wanted to face this. She needed to see Jasmine's face, to understand how someone she'd trusted for so long could have betrayed her so completely. Maya opened the door just wide enough to look at her former friend. Jasmine looked terrible, her hair unwashed, her expensive clothes rumpled, her eyes red and swollen from crying. Her makeup was smeared, and she was shaking. Good. Maya, please. I made a mistake, Jasmine sobbed, reaching out like she wanted to touch Maya's arm. A terrible mistake. Helena manipulated both of us. You have to understand. She promised me things. She said you and Daniel were already over, that the marriage was just for show. I was stupid and I'm so sorry. Maya looked at her without expression. You slept with my husband in my home, while I was cutting my own birthday cake, she said, her voice perfectly level, perfectly controlled. You helped me pick out my wedding dress knowing you were sleeping with the groom. You stood next to me at my wedding, gave a speech about friendship and loyalty, and smiled while you destroyed my life. You don't get to claim you were manipulated, Jasmine. You chose this. Every single day for 14 months, you chose this. I know, and I hate myself for it. Maya, please. You have to forgive me. We've been friends since college. That has to mean something. It did mean something. It meant I trusted you. I defended you. When other people said you were shallow and opportunistic, I told them they didn't know you like I did. Turns out, they knew you better than I ever did. I'm sorry. God, Maya, I'm so sorry. I'll do anything to make this right. No, you're not sorry. You're scared. There's a difference. Maya's voice was like a blade, precise and cutting. You're scared because I have proof of everything. Every lie, every scheme, every fraudulent document. And you're scared because you're named in the lawsuits. You're scared because your perfect life with Daniel is falling apart just like mine did. Except you deserve it. So no, Jasmine. I won't forgive you. And I won't help you. You're going to face the consequences of your choices, just like I had to face the consequences of trusting the wrong people. Maya, please, leave, now, before I call the police and add harassment to the list of charges. She closed the door on Jasmine's sobs and walked back to the couch, feeling strangely empty. She thought she'd feel satisfaction, seeing Jasmine broken like that. But instead, she just felt tired. Tired of the lies, tired of the drama, tired of wasting emotional energy on people who'd never deserved it. The weeks that followed were a blur of depositions, document reviews, strategy sessions with Patricia and her legal team, Marcus found more evidence of the Hartwells' financial fraud, tracing the money through layers of shell corporations and offshore accounts. Sarah uncovered communications between Helena and Jasmine going back almost 2 years, showing that Helena had actively recruited Jasmine to seduce Daniel, promising her a partnership in the restructured company and access to the Chen family money. The preliminary hearing was a massacre. Patricia had assembled a legal team that included 3 senior partners, 2 forensic accountants, and a retired federal prosecutor who specialized in white-collar crime. They dismantled the Hartwell family's defense piece by piece, presenting evidence so overwhelming that even the Hartwells' expensive attorneys looked defeated. The forged documents, the hidden assets, the conspiracy to defraud Maya of her inheritance, the affair conducted with Maya's money, in hotels paid for with joint credit cards, the business fraud spanning years, the false statements to investors, the money laundering through fake consulting contracts. It was all there, documented in excruciating detail, irrefutable and damning. Helena sat in the courtroom like a statue, her face frozen in aristocratic contempt, refusing to show weakness even as her world crumbled. But Maya saw the fear in her eyes when the judge reviewed the evidence. This wasn't just a divorce anymore. This was criminal prosecution. This was the complete destruction of everything Helena had spent her life building. The judge, a woman in her 60s with steel gray hair and a reputation for being tough but fair, looked at Helena with undisguised disgust. "Mrs. Hartwell, in 30 years on the bench, I have rarely seen such calculated cruelty. You didn't just enable your son's affair. You orchestrated an elaborate scheme to defraud a young woman out of her inheritance, conspired to steal money from your own company's investors, and then attempted to gaslight Mrs. Chen into accepting it. This court finds probable cause for criminal proceedings on multiple counts." Helena's attorney, a man who probably cost $1,000 an hour, tried to object. The judge silenced him with a look that could have frozen water. "Furthermore," the judge continued, her voice ringing through the courtroom, "given the invalid prenuptial agreement, Mr. Hartwell's systematic concealment of marital assets, and the clear evidence of fraud, I am granting Mrs. Chen's motion for immediate asset freeze and emergency spousal support. Pending final divorce proceedings, Mrs. Chen is entitled to 50% of all marital property, including Mr. Hartwell's shares in Hartwell Construction. Additionally, I am ordering full forensic audits of all Hartwell family business entities and freezing all accounts pending resolution of the fraud investigation." Maya watched Helena's face go white, watched the color drain from her skin like someone had opened a valve. Daniel looked like he might actually be sick, his hand covering his mouth, his eyes wide with shock. Jasmine, sitting in the back of the courtroom, started crying again, probably realizing that she'd hitched her wagon to a sinking ship. But the final blow came from an unexpected source. Marcus, continuing his investigation even after the preliminary hearing, discovered something that changed everything. Maya's father, before he died, had made a personal loan to Helena Hartwell to keep her construction business afloat during the 2008 financial crisis. The loan was for $5 million, with a modest interest rate and flexible repayment terms, because Maya's father believed in helping people, even wealthy people who'd gotten themselves into trouble through poor decisions. The loan was never repaid, not a single payment. Helena had simply ignored it, apparently believing that Maya's father wouldn't push the issue and that Maya wouldn't know about it after he died. But the loan documents were filed properly, notarized, absolutely legal, and with accumulated interest over 15 years, the debt now totaled nearly $8 million. "Maya, your father owned part of their company and they never told you," Marcus explained, sitting across from her in Patricia's office, his expression somewhere between amazed and furious. "When he died, that debt and those ownership rights transferred to you. You don't just have a claim on half of Daniel's shares. You have a legal claim on 40% of the entire family business based on the unpaid loan and default provisions in the loan agreement. Maya, you basically own the company that Helena has been running into the ground." Patricia leaned forward. her eyes gleaming with something that looked like warrior joy. "This is it, Maya. This is how we end them. We foreclose on the loan, exercise the default provisions, and take controlling interest in Hartwell Construction. We force Helena out completely. We restructure the business, clean out the fraud, and turn it into something legitimate. And we do it all using her own loan agreement against her." Maya sat very still, processing this information. Her father's money, his generosity, his belief in helping others even when it cost him, was now the weapon that would bring down the family that had tried to destroy his daughter. There was a poetry to it, a justice that felt almost cosmic. "Do it," Maya said simply. The final settlement took 3 months to negotiate, though negotiate was a generous term for what was essentially the complete capitulation of the Hartwell family. They had no leverage, no defense, no way out. Patricia and her team had them cornered, legally, financially, and morally. Maya acquired controlling interest in Hartwell Construction, forcing Helena out entirely. The board of directors, facing their own liability for overlooking the fraud, voted unanimously to accept Maya as the new majority shareholder and chairwoman. Daniel lost his shares, his inheritance, his position in the company. He was also sentenced to 3 years of probation for his role in the fraud scheme, required to perform 500 hours of community service, and prohibited from serving as an officer or director of any company during his probation. Jasmine was charged as a co-conspirator in the scheme to defraud Maya. She settled out of court, agreeing to pay $2 million in restitution, serve 1,000 hours of community service, and accept a permanent restraining order prohibiting her from contacting Maya ever again. Her family's law firm dropped her. Her social circle abandoned her. Her Instagram perfect life imploded spectacularly and publicly. Helena faced the harshest consequences: criminal charges for fraud, embezzlement, and conspiracy. She was convicted on multiple counts and sentenced to 5 years in federal prison, with the judge specifically noting the calculated cruelty of her actions and her complete lack of remorse. Her assets were seized to pay restitution to defrauded investors. Her reputation, everything she'd spent her life building, was destroyed so completely that her name became synonymous with white-collar crime in Seattle's business community. But Maya's revenge wasn't just about money or justice or seeing her enemies punished. It was about transformation. She restructured Hartwell Construction from the ground up, bringing in new leadership committed to ethical business practices and fair treatment of workers. She fired every executive who'd been complicit in Helena's schemes and replaced them with people who'd actually built things, who understood construction from the ground up, who treated employees like humans instead of line items on a balance sheet. She renegotiated contracts fairly, paid outstanding debts to small contractors Helena had been stiffing for years, and implemented transparent accounting practices. Within a year, the company was not just profitable again, but thriving. Projects that had been stalled resumed. Clients who'd fled came back. The company won awards for workplace culture and ethical business practices. Maya had taken something rotten and made it clean. Then she renamed it Chen & Associates Construction, putting her father's name on the building where Helena once ruled, on the trucks that drove through Seattle, on every contract and every project. Every success was a monument to the man who'd raised Maya to value integrity over wealth, kindness over power, truth over convenience. Helena's lips parted, but no words came out. For a long time, the only sound in the room was the low hum of the fluorescent lights. Finally, she said quietly, "Do you ever think about him? About Daniel?" Maya hesitated. She had thought about him, more often than she cared to admit. About the man who had promised her forever, then vanished into the shadows of his mother's lies. "Yes," Maya said softly. "I think about the man I loved, not the man he became. I hope someday he finds the courage to separate himself from all this. From you." Helena gave a small, bitter smile. "He still won't speak to me. He says I ruined everything." Maya's gaze didn't waver. Then maybe he's finally seeing clearly. A long silence stretched between them. Helena's eyes, once full of venom, now carried something else. Grief, maybe. Or the faintest flicker of regret. You really believe people can change? She asked at last. I believe some do, Maya said, standing. But not because they want redemption, because they finally understand the cost of what they've done. Helena looked down at her hands, the trembling worse now. And what about you, Maya? Have you forgiven me? Maya took a slow breath, feeling the weight of years lift just a little. Forgiveness isn't something I owe you, she said. But I refuse to carry your poison any longer. That's my peace. That's enough. She turned toward the door, the guard signaling the end of their time. As she walked away, Helena's voice followed her, fragile, cracking. Maya, what did you do with the money? Maya paused, just long enough to glance back over her shoulder. I used it to build something that lasts, she said. Something honest. Something my father would be proud of. And then she walked out, into the cool afternoon light, where the air smelled faintly of rain and the city below pulsed with life and possibility. Outside, she stood for a moment, closing her eyes, feeling the wind coming off the bay. For the first time in years, she didn't feel haunted. Helena had built an empire of deceit. Maya had built a legacy of truth, and that, Maya thought as she walked toward her car, was the real victory.